Hey everybody, and welcome to another odd vlog, and we're going to get right into What If Season 2. And straight off the bat, I will say I think it was better than Season 1, so let's get into it. The problem I felt with Season 1 was simply the fact that it was just such a gimmicky kind of thing. They really went out of their way to basically assassinate quite a lot of really big characters. Thanos was just turned into a complete and utter joke. And also they were kind of playing off on the whole like Thor becoming a comedy character rather than a serious character. And every episode I felt was just way over the top in terms of humour and just really belittling the characters throughout the whole thing. So I really hated Season 1. I really didn't enjoy it in the slightest. I also felt like it was completely pointless. It serves no purpose whatsoever in trying to actually progress the current sort of saga of Marvel Studios and what we've got going on. All it really does is kind of just demonstrate the fact that you can have alternate dimensions and storylines throughout the multiverse. But, you know, that's all well and good, but I kind of felt like it was a show that was just made for the sake of it. It really doesn't offer anything particularly, in my opinion. So Season 1 I felt was really bad. There were episodes in it that had potential, like for example the Marvel Zombies episode was quite watchable, and also when you started to get like the kind of Guardians group kind of getting together at the end. Season 1 was a little bit like phase 1 of the Infinity Saga in the sense that you had a culmination of these individual superheroes kind of getting together. So they created the Guardians of the Multiverse, which was a new group and something a little bit different, but I kind of felt like you could have taken that somewhere and done a lot more with it. Could I kind of like brought it into live action a little bit more, done something else with it. You've set it up and now they've kind of just pushed it away and it becomes really meaningless and not very important. So Season 1, I just really didn't enjoy it at all. Other than a few minor kind of positives to take from it, I really didn't like it. Season 2 though, I feel like was a much better step in the right direction. Better written, much more engaging episodes, character stories that were a lot deeper and a lot more, well, less of a joke basically. Which isn't to say that there wasn't actually any humour in Season 2, of course there is. I just felt like it was better delivered and less kind of forced down your throat a little bit. And a lot like when I spoke about my Echo review in my last episode, the humour comes a little bit more from the kind of side characters as opposed to your lead superheroes who maintain their kind of intensity throughout, which is, I think, a better way to deliver a Marvel show. I think that works so much better, and it's why I think the current slate of movies just doesn't really work. It's too reliant on humour and they end up really, as I said before, belittling their characters and making them seem so much less impressive. So yeah, Season 2 of What If was at least a little step in the right direction. Breaking down the individual episodes though, we start off with the first one, which was What If Nebula Joins the Nova Corps. I actually really liked this episode because it was really gritty. It actually had something about it that was very different, very unique. It really felt like a sort of throwaway to old school sci-fi movies like Demolition Man or Judge Dredd. It just had like something extra about it that was a little bit more intense. It had that grit to it, and you still had some humor kind of weaved in through there with like Howard the Duck and that kind of thing, which was absolutely fine because the lead character in that show maintained the intensity, and because of that it was really engaging, a good storyline. And overall the theme of it, because it was just that ever so slightly, not darker, but definitely edgier and grittier and didn't rely so much on that humour. I really liked it. I felt like that was a really good opening to the season, very different, but certainly engaging and fun to watch. I liked that one a lot. Episode 2 was What If Peter Quill Attacks Earth's Mightiest Heroes, but in this one it's not the Avengers as we would know them, it's the Avengers from more like the 1980s. So you get like the Hank Pym version of Ant-Man, you also get like an older version of Black Panther, which is really cool, and some other characters that were just kind of, you hadn't really seen them in that light before. I forget the name of the character who was in the Ant-Man movie, but he's like Giant Man and does the opposite of Ant-Man. He, rather than going small, becomes really big. So that was really good to watch, and also weirdly, you had the Winter Soldier because, of course, he's really from the 1940s, unfrozen, and then kind of used throughout this 1980s episode of the Avengers. So I actually really liked that. I thought it was really good. It was very different. It's another group that you could do other things with. The whole idea of like Peter Quill as the bad guy was a little bit not particularly great, I didn't think. But overall, as a concept, I think it worked really well, and there's some really good engaging characters in it. Peggy Carter makes an appearance in that as well, because of course she's kind of setting up this Avengers roster, as it were. I liked it, but it wasn't brilliant. It didn't set the world on fire, but what it did do was create another group, which was, I thought, the most interesting thing about that particular episode. Episode 3, What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? Obviously it came out over Christmas, so it was kind of natural what sort of having an episode in there that was like a Christmassy theme. It was an alright episode. Essentially what happens is that Happy ends up being injected with Hulk serum and turns into a purple version of the Incredible Hulk. A little bit gimmicky, a little bit too much of the humour again, but it's kind of working on the characters that are in there are generally the funnier comedy relief characters. So it was alright, it was watchable. Not that great. And unfortunately what it did do at the very, very end was kind of bring in Thor and just, again, kind of making him a little bit of a joke character. And it just doesn't work anymore. It's just really bad. So an episode that was okay, an episode that was fun to watch, but an episode that ultimately not that impressive and you can kind of forget about it. What If Iron Man Crashed into the Grandmaster? It was episode 4, I believe. And the interesting thing about this episode is that it was the episode that was cut from season 1 when that came out. So a lot of the times when you got to the end of season 1, you were really confused as to why there was this variant of Gamora running around as part of the Guardians of the Multiverse without her having had her own episode leading up to why she's there. So it felt very disjointed. We knew that it got pulled out of season 1 for reasons unknown, and obviously they've now brought it back for season 2 as a bit of a throwback to what had happened in the previous season. But watching that episode, I was always under the impression that the reason that it got pulled is because it featured a storyline that involved some kind of virus, and that because of COVID and all those kinds of things, that maybe it was a little bit too sensitive to publish at the time that season 1 came out. But watching it, I can't actually see anything in that episode that was in any way going to upset anybody. I racking my brains to try and figure out why that episode got cut from season 1. It makes very little sense to me because I really can't see any reason as to why they did that now. Whatever the rumours were before all seem to be wrong. So I don't get it. I don't know why they did it. An interesting episode. It's basically a case of, it turns into like a car race. So it's like watching an animated version of Fast and Furious, that it all gets settled on a racetrack with demolition cars, essentially. So kind of a fun episode, if you like, quite good. Korg is in it and he is absolutely brilliant. He actually steals the show because, again, the humour of the episode is placed on him and he delivers it so well because he's the comedy character. They don't put it really into Iron Man or Gamora or somewhere that's misplaced. With Korg, he's there to bring in the comedy and he works brilliantly well. I think my favourite line throughout the entire episode was something along the lines of Tony Stark had just kind of defeated Gamora and then Korg just sort of looks at her and says, "Take that, vile asparagus woman." And I just thought that was just really funny. Just the way he delivered it was just perfect, and I really, really liked it. But Korg in that is brilliant, and similarly, yeah, Iron Man was really good, Gamora was good, the Grandmaster was really good. So it was a better episode, I thought. I could never wrap my head around and figure out why. Why did they not show it the first time round? I don't really get it. It also means that realistically, this series has less episodes in it because that episode in particular belongs actually in season 1. And I think they should rejuggle it around and put it back where it belongs because then it makes the Guardians of the Multiverse episode so much more, it makes more sense. So anyway, it was a bit strange, but overall, yeah, a good episode. I enjoyed that one. What If Captain Carter Fought the Hydra Stomper was the next one. And this was basically a retelling of Captain America the Winter Soldier, but with Peggy Carter, and it's basically the same storyline, pretty much, but obviously with a lot of twists in it. And this was kind of becoming a bit of a theme with this show that was really starting to frustrate me, is that you're just taking storylines that have already been done and already been told, and you're just swapping characters around. It's boring because we know what's going to happen. We've seen it before. We've already watched this story. So I didn't like that episode, and I was getting a little bit fed up as well of the fact that Captain Carter seems to be the most pushed character in this show for reasons I cannot figure out. I've got no problem with Captain Carter. She's really cool. She's a good character. But why are you leaning so heavily into this one person? I don't understand it. You've got a whole multiverse of characters and it should be about all of them, not just one, but they're really pushing heavily on her. yeah, for what reason I don't know. It's fine, okay, if that's what you're going to do. But this was an episode that I just felt was so forced, and barely any effort was made in the writing of it. You've literally taken a storyline that already exists and yeah, just moved characters about. So I really didn't appreciate this one at all. I thought it was a bit of a waste of time. It didn't need to be done, and it's a story that's already been told. Why bother? The next episode, though, was very, very different. This was the brand new character they brought in, whose name I think is Kahori, and I'm hoping that I haven't really messed that up. But the episode is What If Kahori Reshaped the World? And this was a really compelling episode, and actually I think the best one of the whole season, because it was very different, incredibly new, different characters, different genres, different settings, something that we've never seen before, and was then connected to the Echo show that came out a few weeks later. So I actually felt like this was brilliant because it had a great connection. It ties in with other things really nicely, even though it's completely brand new, and was a different direction and a different theme to kind of go down. I really, really liked it. I enjoyed the story. It very much felt like the Disney movie Pocahontas. It's almost the exact same story in a lot of ways. Well, certainly in terms of its theming and what's happening in it and in the setting of it. So it was good. I really liked it. It was a new character that came in, and then a character that then would turn up in later episodes of What If as well. So it's good. I'll be interested to see if they bring that character back in live action, or if she stays as just being this animated What If character. We don't know, but it was good. It was a good origin story. It was very, very different. It had very kind of Avatar vibes to it because it was incredibly visually stunning as well, with the way that they kind of gave her powers and what she can do with them. Yeah, a lot of parallels that you could make with other things that sort of inspired it. But I thought it was a good episode. I thought it was really good. Very, very different. It was nice to see like different cultures that you've never seen before in these shows and in these films. So I really appreciated it. I thought it was a really good episode. And yeah, I'd like to see that particular storyline carried on, and that character and where she goes from here. What if Hela found the 10 rings? Well, unfortunately with this episode, this was a bit of a letdown. The problem for me with this is that I don't like the Shang-Chi movie. I really hate it. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it in any way, shape or form. I couldn't care less about any of the characters that are in it. I just felt like it's a completely pointless waste of time. I don't like it. So right off the bat, I've got a problem then with, well, now's an episode of this show which is based on the 10 rings. And yeah, I really didn't like it. It's just completely pointless. There were some good bits about it. Seeing Hela put into different situations and the way she reacts is quite fun and quite entertaining to see her. And it is an episode that's predominantly about her, but oh my god, was it predictable? Because again, you're just telling the Thor story again. So it's about being worthy and then getting your powers back because of that. And that's exactly what happens. So you've already told the story, Marvel. You've already done this. This is the Thor film retold with different characters. What's the point? And this was my problem with the first episode. What if it's all completely pointless? And then the next episode, what if the Avengers assembled in 1602? Again, why do we need that story? It's just something, I think, as a bit of an excuse to tell something that's visually different. And it was okay. It was an all right episode. It was good fun. But very throwaway. And the idea of it is that it's leading into the culmination, the finale of the series, and it's basically the fact that the multiverse is kind of getting a bit messed up, for want of a better way to putting it. And in the end, it's Captain Carter yet again that gets brought in to save it. And again, this is the same thing as like they're pushing that character so heavily throughout this whole series and the whole show, that again it comes down to her. And it's an all right episode. It's entertaining and it's kind of fun, but it's meaningless. And in the end, the whole 1602 universe just completely disappears and doesn't exist anymore by the end of it. So it was a complete waste of time. If you're not going to actually save it, then what was the point? But it kind of leads into the final episode, and again, it's Captain Carter being pushed as this this hero. She kind of gets picked up at the end of the Hydra Stomper episode, and then dropped into this universe, and you know she's kind of wrestling with the fact that she could just leave this universe to die. It's not really her responsibility to try and save it, but her being her, she obviously wants to try to save it, and that's what she ends up doing. So you know she is a true guardian of the multiverse in that way, but similarly, why her? You've got a whole group of Guardians and you're only telling the story really of one of them. And I don't understand that. I just don't get it. It's not that Captain Carter is a bad character in any way, shape or form, but she's just a retelling of Captain America. It's the same basic character. And this is the thing, you're just telling the same stories over and over again now. They're just animated and you've switched the characters around yet again. So it just makes the whole thing seem just completely and totally pointless. Unless you're actually going to go off and start to take these stories and expand on them, like with Marvel Zombies, for example. I know they want to do that, and I'd love for them to do that. Personally, I'd like them to perhaps take an episode of what comes out of What If and then put it into live action and turn it into a movie and actually make it important. But at the moment, they're just throwaway episodes that don't then get expanded on, telling stories of films that have already been told. I don't get it. I just don't see the point of it. It is making content for content's sake. And then finally, it all comes to a head in the final episode, which is basically where Doctor Strange is pulling in characters from some of the previous episodes, imprisoning effectively all of the villains that he can. He's essentially trying to bring back his long lost and deceased love, which is obviously a story we've seen before because that was a story of his episode in season 1. So they're just, again, telling the same story. It's just that in this he's more of a big bad villain, and Captain Carter basically faces off against him along with Kahori, and they have a big showdown, and that's kind of about it. The thing is as well that with this episode, Captain Carter ends up being able to harness a lot of powers of other characters, or certainly their weapons, and that's all well and good, but that's the Secret Invasion storyline. That's how that series ends. So again, the writing in this is just so poor. There's nothing really original. It's just that it's visually different. And so ultimately, while I do think that season 2 was better than season 1, it's still a terribly badly written show, and I really don't like it. I just think it's such a waste of time. The concept of it is brilliant, but I feel like the way that they just retell stories, move characters about, it's not really doing anything to progress the MCU, to make the current saga any more engaging. It doesn't progress the storylines. They're just making it to put something on Disney Plus. That's really all these shows are now, and it's painfully obvious, unfortunately. And then, just to make everyone feel better about it, they immediately then released the trailer for season 3. So sadly, we've got yet more of this derivative storytelling to come. And I don't know what the timescales are on that. I haven't looked it up as to when that's going to get released. But again, much like season 2, I'm not going to be particularly looking forward to it. It's going to be much the same thing. And unless they actually start telling stories that are really, really different, like that Gamora episode was really different. That was a brand new story in an environment and in a setting and with a tone that we've not seen before. So do that, make it new, make it different, rather than just retelling stuff over and over again. So there we go. On that terrible disappointment, because it really was, it is time to end the episode. So thank you very much for watching. We will be back soon. Next weekend, if the trains are running, I'm off to a Star Wars event, which I will be filming. So do subscribe, stay tuned, and I'll see you real soon.